Hi, everyone. My name is Tammy, and I'm an events coordinator for Finessed Media. And wow, can I just say how informative and enlightening the past few days have been in this Music and Tech Summit? It's been so interesting to see how accessible technology is becoming as we start to enter these virtual spaces and integrate technology more into regular life. And so I wonder what it's going to start to look like more and more in the music industry with these technological advances. But lucky for me and lucky for you, we're going to touch on this a little bit in the next panel. So allow me to introduce the Future of Music Distribution panel hosted by Bea Dimaculangan.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. Good afternoon. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Bea Dimaculangan, and I am an event coordinator here at Finesse Media, and I will be your host for today for our Future of Music Distribution panel. This panel today is to discuss how the technological age has affected how we can now distribute our music, moving from digital distribution of physical CDs and cassettes to now digital streaming platforms, and looking at what the new trends are and how the industry is going to continue to shift. So today we have an awesome lineup of panelists. So today we have with us Joshua Kyle Dickinson, who is the head of publicity at the Alternative Distribution Alliance under Warner Music. We also have Michaela Allen, who is the marketing manager at Distrokid. We have Chris Maltese, who is the head of artist services at Believe, which is the parent company of Tunecore. And we also have McGuire, the director of artist and label relations in Los Angeles. So why don't we start off with a quick introduction so folks in the room know who they are learning from. So if you guys could tell us a little bit about your journey into the music industry. Joshua, why don't you start us off?
Hey everyone, excited to be here today. Sorry. I would say I started off in music publishing and syncs, and then in that process was introduced to like a lot of songwriters and producers, and ended up working for an indie label with distribution via E1, and that's really kind of got my feet wet in PR, and really learned a lot. And then after that, I did a stint on the agency side, so it was always music and its intersection with brand. So a lot of brand partnerships, artist tours, PR around that, as well as like brand integrations, new music releases. And that spanned everything from Super Bowl halftime shows to just tours like Justin Timberlake's Man of the Woods to 88 Rising. And now I'm at 88 Worldwide, which is Warner Music Group's distribution arm. And there I do a lot of direct artist deals as well as label partner deals, distributing music.
Awesome. Mikaela, do you want to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your journey into the music industry?
Yeah, I'm Michaela Allen, and I'm the marketing manager over at Distrokid. My relationship with the music industry started back in college. I studied music business when I was in school with a concentration in marketing. Went on to get my master's in global entertainment and music business, and then moved to New York, where I got my first job over at Tunecore, actually, in their customer service department. So I was working with artists. Day in, day out, email, phone, everything, and just basically hearing their concerns and trying to figure out ways that we can kind of fix that on our side. When I was over at Tunecore, went up and decided to do marketing with them, and then transitioned over to Tidal, which is obviously a DSP. Got a lot of really great experience there. A lot of really monumental releases came out when I was over there, including Jay-Z's 444, Beyonce and Jay-Z's Everything is Love, Nicki Minaj's Queen, really a whole bunch of really monumental releases that I got to work on, which was a lot of really fantastic experience. After some time over there, decided to get into the live entertainment space, and around then was pretty much when COVID started. So figured it'd be best to transition back into something that kind of had a little bit stronger legs to it, which is distribution for me, and decided to continue on with Distrokid as their marketing manager, handling their sponsorships and partnerships. And it's basically my job to help organizations that are doing really great work, including Finesse Media, when it comes to connecting artists and sparking really relevant conversations, to make sure that those orgs have the support that they need, and that the artists have the tools that they need to make what they want to make out of their careers with their music. So really excited to be here talking with everyone today.
Yeah, thanks for joining us, Michaela. Chris, do you want to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your journey into the music industry?
Yeah, sure. My name is Chris Maltese. I'm the head of artist and label services over at Believe, which, as mentioned, is the parent company of Tunecore. Also, love to see Tunecore alum doing big things. What up, Mikaela? Shout out to you. Yeah, so my journey basically is I was at MTV actually for 8 years, sort of in like their heyday period. And about halfway through there, I just got the entrepreneurial bug, and I was interviewing all the biggest, artists and celebrities in the world on a daily basis. But I figured out I wanted to kind of be on the other side of the equation and working with these artists that were coming in instead of, just being a press stop. So I figured out how to add some value, which at that time involved hustling a little bit and getting some of my friends' bands and artists that I knew onto some of these MTV shows via licensing and sync. Um, that led to them getting some calls from record labels and managers and lawyers, and they didn't know how to handle it. So they would come back to me and ask me to, make phone calls back for them or take meetings with them. So I kind of inadvertently fell into artist management. Eventually found an artist, started managing him, had a big top 5 pop hit. And then when that happened, I left MTV to do the management thing full time on my own. Had my own shop for a few years, then decided to partner with a bigger company called Primary Wave, which is both a management company and a publisher. And there I kind of got to be a manager, but also work on their publishing side. Eventually, I started an in-house label there. And from there, the opportunity to come over here to Believe and build out and run their label services division here in the US was something I just couldn't pass up. So what I essentially do now is run this label division for Believe.
Awesome. Really happy to have you here, Chris. Thank you. Oz, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, thanks for having me, Bea. I'm excited to be on this panel. My name is Oz McGuire. I'm based out of Los Angeles. And I started out as a DJ. I just always loved to turn people on to music and share new things, and did college radio DJ. And then after that, I moved to San Francisco and I started throwing events and hosting other artists, live music and DJs. I was doing a lot of promotion, and my intention was to go to grad school, but my DJ career kind of popped off. So I dropped out of grad school, and my dad, I think, said, you better get an internship or something. So I interned at a record label and kind of learned about this business side of it that I never knew. And eventually I kind of liked the lifestyle of working on the master side more than the event side, where I was up late every night and I was wilding out, and it was a little too much after a certain amount of time. So the label ended up hiring me full time, and I helped them with their marketing as they were transitioning from download era to streaming era. And they were distributed by Ingrooves, and eventually they needed someone over there who understood a lot of niche genres. So I helped them with EDM, a lot of reggae music, and some urban hip hop, soul, R&B. And it was at a time when Spotify was just taking off. So I helped all these really cool indie labels learn how to make money on streaming, when at the time before, a lot of people were just putting stuff up on SoundCloud, and we were helping them transition into making a business out of the streaming era. And that's kind of where I spent the last handful of years, building up artist careers. I got to work with Thundercat, Freddie Gibbs, Madlib, and eventually I got into helping negotiate and signing the deals. And that's kind of what I do now, is bring in new business and help artists get a fair deal, help them understand how they can own their masters, make more money throughout their career, and still get advances and support from a team. So that's where I'm at right now. It's been a lot of fun, and excited to talk about experience and what's coming in the future.
Awesome. Thank you, Oz. So we have a really awesome lineup of panelists. So I hope everyone in the audience has their notebook and their pens ready, because we are about to definitely receive some gems. So we would love to hear about, why are you guys interested in music and tech? As the tech age is playing a larger role in the music industry, and as your roles are evolving, why are you guys interested in being in this music and tech space? Mikaela, you want to start us off?
Yeah, sure. I know it feels like right now, like it's like kind of all of a sudden, like tech and music is like running into each other. But if you think about it, like it's always kind of been that way. Like music has always needed to be sent somewhere. And if you think about the role that music plays and the role that technology plays, like a lot of it tends to be in the role of connecting things together or like facilitating connection. So if you think about like how people were singing songs to each other, and that was like the form of storytelling, versus like people writing letters to each other and like, you know, sending it in a bottle down the sea or whatever, versus like text messaging, then you're writing music down, and then like it all kind of evolves within each other. So to not be aware of what's going on in the tech space kind of does yourself a disservice as a musician. I mean, even if you think about like how instruments have evolved from like, you know, like with me and my own personal experience, like I was taking piano lessons, and then it switched to keyboard lessons because that was just easier, and we can keep a keyboard in the house. So really, it's always been something that like like I mentioned, have like played into each other's past a little bit. So it's been interesting to see, especially in the digital age, of like how it transitioned from CDs to streaming and everything. As I started my career anyway, it's been really interesting, and it's been important to stay up on these things because the like technology is so fast and so evolving that if you don't stay up on it, then 1 week later you could be behind on something and missing an opportunity to help yourself be a more informed music business person. So yeah, I feel like it's something we like kind of always have to have our hands into for sure.
Yeah, 100%. What about you, Chris? Why are you interested in music and tech?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think Mikaela really nailed it. It's always kind of been this marriage of two different worlds, so to speak. But you know, from the music side, I mean, I think ever since I was a kid, I've just always had an affinity for it, and I've always had an affinity or been in awe of people who can do things that I can't. So as much as I may have wanted to have been, you know, a rock star when I was a kid, I wasn't musically inclined, and I, you know, the same way that I can watch a basketball game and see somebody do some crazy dunk and just be blown away, like how could somebody actually do that? I feel the same way about artists and music. So I've always had a, you know, a soft spot for artists, and have my whole life always tried to, you know, imagine what their processes are, and now being in a position where I can consistently add value to those, you know, to those artists and to those projects is something that gets me out of bed and gets me really excited. And obviously, you know, tech being involved in the music industry now has ramped all of that up, and it's taken a lot of walls down that, you know, were previously up, and we're just seeing a lot of the benefits now that tech has added to the music industry. So, you know, I think we're in the greatest time ever. If you're an artist, I think you have more access points now than ever. You have more competition than ever, which I'm sure we'll get to. But yeah, that spot of tech meeting music, and the way that we're now able to service artists, and the way that we're able to add value due to the tech that we have, I think is about as exciting as it gets.
Yeah, I love that. Especially that you're saying that, you know, now is the best time to be an artist. There's so many new tools and resources that are, you know, making that process so much easier. So I know we do have a lot of artists in the room. We have a lot of aspiring industry professionals. So why don't we talk a little bit about, why don't we define exactly what music distribution is and some of the key players involved? And how does your role play a part in that intersection of distribution, music, and tech? So Josh, do you want to start us off?
Yeah, I mean, it's really just getting your music out there. A lot of the partners are like, for me, like do with a lot of label partners. Sometimes literally it's people setting up a label the day of, and you're really, and telling you have a release that they want out like that Friday. But my specific role in it is, and kind of even leading on to the point that like Mikaela and Chris made about what, you know, talk about the evolution of tech. It's all about connectivity. Like we're in the business of marketing audible emotions, and you want the audience, the consumers, to be able to connect with that. And as we continue to evolve and grow, and technology has literally, we found new ways to distribute it, new ways to place music. My first discovery point for music was always TV and film. I was obsessed with the people who, like, how can you're literally like locking me into this scene through this song. And then it's evolved into new ways. Now you have things like Festival Tycoon, and it's carved up, you know, you're syncing music to video games, and you're doing Virch, which is like virtual merch, and just really new ways to carve up communities, and new ways to kind of like find the intersectionalities as well. And like for me, it's constantly trying to find new ways to tell an artist narrative, and it's like sort of learning the way to abandon the traditional mediums of like TV and print, and really kind of play into mobile, play into gaming, and play into different things like that.
Yeah, awesome. I love how you called it, we're in the business of marketing audible emotions. I really love that. Yeah, Oz, do you want to add anything to that about defining music distribution, some of the key players, and how, your role plays a part in all of that?
Yeah, definitely. And I think now distribution has kind of become just a baseline thing that anyone can offer, whereas before it used to be very complicated, complex, especially in the physical era where you had to have warehouses and salespeople. And so now we have a baseline of, there's tubes that get the music out to Spotify and the other DSPs. And different people have different offerings, and each one of them has a specific thing that they're special at, whether it's certain territories they're strong in, certain services they offer. But one thing I would like to just talk about and dispel a kind of a myth for certain artists out there maybe is thinking like they need this distributor or this label or this manager before they can make moves. Because if you have that mindset, I think you're always going to be in trouble, because now there's just so much out there. You have to do so much yourself, and that's just part of the game. And no one's ever going to care more than you as an artist. You could sign with ADA or Orchard or Believe or Ingrooves. But if you're not making moves yourself, if you're not showing, numbers and growth, it's going to be hard for anybody else to care, because there's so many people out there that we all have to look after. So I always think that there's this thing like, I need this manager, I need this distributor, but you advice to say, you have to do a lot yourself. You have to prove yourself, and no distributor's ever going to care more than you, just because we have a lot of things to look after and care about. And we are passionate people, and we are looking out for artists. But if the artists aren't not looking out for themselves enough, then no one else will. So that's, I guess, my little pearl for this part.
Yeah, absolutely. So I know we've been touching a little bit on some of the shifts that we've seen in music distribution, moving from physical to digital. So let's get a little bit more specific from your experience. What have been some of the major changes during the tech age, and how are those impacting the music industry? And how has the role of labels and streaming platforms evolved? Chris, why don't you start us off?
Yeah, sure. I mean, as already kind of noted, just a lot of the barriers to entry are now gone. I mean, I think if you look over the course of history, go back a couple of decades, and you'll talk to artists who physically had to, just to record and get it out there, they would have to, pay for a studio, hire a producer, a mixer, mastering, physical tape. Then you needed somebody to not only hopefully pay for all that stuff, but to then take that product and, negotiate with physical stores for their very limited shelf space. Maybe you get an end cap. Then you had to, hopefully get a video created and put on MTV to, kind of catapult the song in a new way. All of those things are now essentially gone. And you have kids that are making songs in their bedrooms on their laptops that within days can get it to all of the DSPs, can go viral, can do real numbers, generate business, and create buzz, and and then build off of that. So I just think that technology, again, as we said, is just it's taken down barriers, and it's opened up lanes for artists and creators to not have to go through the traditional channels and wait so long and have to spend all this money. And those gatekeepers just don't exist in the same way. It's not to say that some artists don't still take the label approach and go to radio and wait and all that other stuff, but for the most part, what we're seeing is independent artists represent the fastest growing segment of the music business. There's 60,000 new songs that get uploaded to Spotify every single day. So when you think about that, there's just so much more music that is being produced and consumed, and with that comes a change in consumer behavior. So we're very much in a singles market now, where we used to be in an albums market. What came out a month ago is considered old to some people, whereas years ago you would work the same song or the same album for months at a time and see if you had something. So I think that there's been a lot of changes, but for the most part, I think that these changes have actually been great for the music business. And I think that the access that artists now have to their fan bases and to their potential fan bases are greater now than they've ever been.
Yeah, for sure. And I appreciate that you touched on the fact that now this tech is not only, changing the way that we distribute music, but also how we consume music. Moving away from these longer projects to now having like singles, and you're expected to have a lot more consistent releases and that kind of thing. So let's say an artist has their music recorded and ready to go. What are some of the most important things that they should consider when they're about to distribute their music? What are some of the first steps that they need to take? Josh, do you want to start us off?
I mean, from my standpoint, I would say it's really the artist kind of honing down on like what they want to say with the music. What is their narrative? Now, like with the evolution of tech and the way that we're in communication with DSPs, you can get really granular with like even how you're doing your metadata. So you can like really kind of just describe like the mood and the events, like the context and the utility. This allows it to be a little bit more pitchable when it comes to like playlisting and other opportunities, and even on the sing side. And so I think it's just a little bit more ownership and exactly on how you want people to receive the song you're putting out. And even back to what Chris was saying, so many more access points and opportunities. I think it's just really important for the artists, kind of to even with Oz's point, really kind of know what you want to say and what you want to do, because there is so much autonomy now because of tech in the music industry. And I think that's just really coming, because everyone's going to ask you the same thing. What is the long game? What's the narrative? And like, what is it leading up to? DSPs ask it, other partners ask it when we're bringing music to them.
Yeah, 100%. Mikaela, do you want to add to that? What are some of the most important things to consider when an artist is ready to distribute their music?
Yeah, I'm really glad metadata, because that's one part that like artists tend to not really consider, and one that they may not see the impact that it could have on the end game of their artistry. Because I definitely agree, like the metadata definitely helps with a lot of the playlisting, and it gives the people who are making those decisions an idea of what's going on without them having to listen to like every single song that comes across their desk. Also, with that being said, outside of the data of your music, it's important to like have an understanding of the data of your audience. Like, where does your audience go to discover new music? Where do they go to talk about songs that they've heard? The audience that you wish you had, like, what are they doing essentially? Because if you spend, and like, this is part of the reason why I decided to get into my side of the business, because like artists already do a lot of work, putting in the effort to make sure that the music sounds good. And then it's like a whole other brain that has to go and do the business side. But if an artist just spends all that time like putting into the quality of the music, which is obviously necessary, but then once they press like send to whatever distributor that you're using, if you think that's it, then like that's not it essentially. Because there's so many more steps, and there's so many more like connection points that need to be made for an artist. I'm sorry, for a fan, in order to build that relationship with an artist. Like, I think it's important to really look at yourself and how you move about the world as a consumer, like even outside of music. Like, sure, you like this pair of shoes, and yeah, you've seen that ad maybe 4 or 5 times before you decided to actually buy that pair of shoes, because you're like, oh, I'm not sure. So if you take in that time to really understand what makes your audience feel safe and what makes them feel comfortable investing in you, because it's an investment, whether it be money for a tour or their time listening to your hour-long album. Like, if I spend an hour listening to music that like I could tell they're not like putting me in mind, or like they're just putting this out thinking that they know what I like, it's obvious, and I'm going to remember that hour. So I think it's really important to really look at like the whole life cycle of what your music is, not just like, oh, this is my release date. What happens like a week after, a month after, a year after? Like, how are you keeping people excited about what you're trying to say? Those are the things that I would feel like are really important to consider for sure.
Yeah, that was a super thorough answer. Do you mind also explaining a little bit more about what exactly metadata is and how it works?
Yeah, so essentially metadata is all of the details that are associated with your release. Like what's the genre, who produced it, who played keys on this. Like depending on who you use to put it out, you're able to put as much as you essentially can in there. And the more information, the better. Because like Josh mentioned, it just gives the people who are actually like making the decisions in terms of where your music goes, it gives them like an arsenal of everything they would need so that they don't have to put in that much work. I feel like when you look at how your music goes throughout the life cycle, you have to kind of make it as easy as possible for someone to say yes to you. And having as much information as there as possible is what makes it easiest. Because then it's not someone being like, okay, I want to do a partnership with this person, but their email isn't in their bio. So now am I going to go and like put in all this work to find this person's information, or am I going to find someone else that has their stuff together? So yeah, I hope that answers it kind of.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you for breaking that down, Michaela. Oz, do you have anything to add to that about what are some of the most important things to consider when an artist is ready to distribute their music?
Yeah, just to add to what Joshua and Michaela said, like having this narrative is important, having the metadata is important. So where to plug that in, and it's all part of having a plan. Every artist you talk to, the minute they finish a record, they want to put the record out. And every manager in the world saying, don't put this out today. This is the biggest mistake you can ever do. So just if you don't have a manager, listen to us telling you all, don't put it out the same day you finish the record as much as you want to, unless you got a spot on Jimmy Fallon or not something massive, or all of a sudden you got a show coming up. Otherwise, you're gonna miss a lot of stuff, and you're not thinking about the plan. And like as we mentioned, you spend all this time making the music, but if you just put it out without a plan, you're going to miss out on getting new audience, and less people are going to hear it. And a few things that are important in that plan and where the metadata goes is every artist needs to sign up for Spotify for artists, Apple for artists, Amazon for artists. Those are the places where you submit, and you have as much, not as much footing, but some footing to get on certain playlists. And if you don't do it in enough time, you're going to miss Release Radar, which is basically a free playlist on Spotify for everyone who follows you. So you have to think about those things and kind of calendar out when the record's going to come out. You need at least a week for the record to be in the system at Spotify, or it's going to miss the Release Radar. And that's your one free playlist for sure. So when you're thinking about if you have an EP, you might want to put out a few tracks and then do a pre-save campaign, and to give the record legs after the record comes out, have cool visualizer assets to try and push people to the product. So those are a few things to think about, and building up followers on Spotify can be a very valuable way to do it because you get those free playlists. So I just want to remind everybody to have a plan. If you don't know what you're doing, like message any of us on DM somewhere. We'll help you out. You know what I mean? It's like talk to somebody. Don't just push send and put it out the day you finish it, unless that's part of your plan. If that is your plan, that's cool. But, I think that everybody out there is working so hard on their art, and everybody wants to get it out and start on the next thing. That's just common. So I'm just telling everybody that don't do it.
No, yeah, for sure. Having a solid release strategy and plan definitely goes hand in hand with distribution. Um, Yeah, are there any other, core factors that make a really strong release strategy? Chris, if you want to add anything to what Oz just mentioned.
I was going to hammer home the Release Radar thing, so he beat me to it. But yeah, I mean, listen, at the end of the day, I think everybody's saying the same thing, which is you need to be organized. You need to have your own calendar, and not just be impulsive about things, and just understand that there's a process for everything that goes into a rollout. But timing is everything. So I think all the major points were pretty much hit home.
Yeah, for sure. So, we've talked a little bit about how the industry has been shifting in the past couple years. Are there any current trends that you see shifting the future of music distribution? Do you think that streaming platforms are going to remain the industry standard? Can you guys give any examples of any new platforms or trends popping up? Josh, do you want to start us off?
Yeah, I mean, I know that like Spotify, forget like before you used to be able to do stuff with like lyrics and just kind of like do like playlists. I know now like Red Bull now will is starting this thing where the artists can like record sort of their voice and talk about like their trajectory. So Red Bull kind of does this like playlisting thing, but you can weave in the music and Spotify will allow as long as the music is found on Spotify. A lot of investment in like gaming, new avatars, wearables on those avatars specific to artists, virtual merch. There's Dolby Atmos, which is pretty big now, and it's going to be through eventually to all DSPs and all headphones. And so like artists have to deliver music that is compatible with that space. And then even from the PR side of things, just thinking about their traditional, I've always tried to push no matter where I've been in. On the agency side, sometimes it's a little bit more segmented, and I've learned even more on the label side it is too. But I'm really big on communication, and so like I really try to keep in constant communication with the digital side so that we're lock in step, because you can't do PR without social now. You can't remove yourself outside that space. So just an artist, I think it's just like you're saying, serving that certain communities and understanding how you have to market to each little subset that you're going to do. Like you can't, you know what I mean? I'm not going to put music out and kind of to Oz's point without a plan, but even thinking a step further, it's like, okay, you need a social plan. You can't put music out without a social plan. That just doesn't make sense now. So it's just like more so like there's so much more to consider these days.
Right, right. And when you say, there are so many more factors to consider, do you want to expand a little bit on some of the social platforms that artists should really be keeping their eye on?
Yeah, I think it's kind of goes back to a point that we mentioned a little earlier. It's like you got to think about it in two ways of like, where is your current audience? And then also where is the audience that you're trying to get? Some of like the older artists that I work with, such as like Incubus or Papa Roach, like, or Daughtry, there's like a built-in audience of Facebook users, but that's like a certain age demographic. And it's like, so there's things that, you want to roll out there and do certain content plays. But then also like the younger consumers, TikTok and Instagram, and even Instagram's evolved and changed over its time, and TikTok as well. Now TikTok is even doing distribution. So it's just like, it's just more so like understanding what is the song that you're trying to make. And then also, once the art is out there, once you figured out like what is the song or the piece of music you want to put out, really understanding where can it live? Can you chop it up? Can it be here? Like, is it something that can live in a 15-second clip or 30 seconds? Or, it's just so much more to consider. I don't think you have to be everywhere, but I do think you have to consider everything.
Yeah, for sure. There are so many things to consider. Mikaela, what about you? Do you want to add to that? Are there any current trends that you see shifting the future of distribution?
Yeah, I feel like this current platform that we are on right now, like the fact that we're doing this in the metaverse, I feel like that's something to consider. And the fact that like we all just basically had to rush and figure out what was going on so we wouldn't be left behind here. So I feel like this is a great place to potentially start. I mean, like it's been a great starting point for me ever since Bea reached out to me about this opportunity. But yeah, even if you just think about the metaverse, it's like, okay, cool. They're like having conferences in the metaverse. And then it's like, okay, are we going to do touring in the metaverse? Talking about the virtual merch, or like, is there going to be virtual merch in the metaverse? Like, what does all of that look like? And like we said, we don't really know what's going to happen in the future, but like, kind of like Josh said, it's important to at least have a baseline of what's going on so that you have an understanding of like how technology is moving around you. Because even if like this dies off by next year or whatever, and we're not even doing this, this is going to be the spark of something else that we're going to be doing next year. So like, even if you think about Vine, look at what Vine has done for us, you know what I mean? And she's not even here anymore. So I feel like if we really consider all of these things and like have an idea of what's going on and then talk to other people that have expertise in these various things, fantastic panels like this, and like, this is essentially this whole festival, that's how we're going to figure out where the next steps are. That's how we're going to figure out like which places to move and like who to talk to, and sparking ideas like while you're in the shower. It's going to be situations like this where it's like, I don't really know what's going on. I'm like kind of dipping my feet in the water here, but like a lot of great conversation is coming out of it. And now I'm thinking about things like this. So yeah, I don't even know what, like this whole week in general has been crazy. So I don't even know what's going to happen next week or the week after that. But if we just kind of try to stay grounded and try to have an idea of what's going on, I feel like that'll be the best opportunities for us, because ideas spark when people have ideas that tell other people their ideas. I feel like this is like kind of roundabout answer, but it's my answer.
No, yeah, I love that. It always just starts off, with that one idea. Yeah, so jumping off of that, talking about, what are some of the new trends that you guys are seeing? We'd love to hear what you guys specifically are most excited about in the music and tech space. Chris, do you want to start us off here?
Yeah, I mean, I think, kind of going back to what we were saying before with the barriers of entry being kind of gone. I mean, to me anyway, it's fairly exciting to know that an artist who might not have, a lot of backing or a major fan base, or, might just be starting out, the playing field's been leveled a bit. Like, they can still have a moment. They can still have a way to get out there and take off a bit, whether it's, a TikTok or however the song is connecting. We've kind of seen from our side, that's like the industry now is like looking for moments to capitalize on, and whether that's good or bad, I guess, is debatable. But I know for sure we've definitely found artists that were creating a bit of a buzz on their own that we were able to really amplify, not by getting behind a song that happens to be moving on one platform, but digging into them to their their artistry, their catalog, and then figuring out ways to amplify it with them. So Tunecore specifically, in fact, they just rolled something out new called Tunecore social platforms, where artists can now directly just distribute to the social networks of their choice before going to the DSPs. So it's almost like a test out period to see, like, do I want to really put this out with and have it be seen with all the metrics the way that I would a traditional release or not? It's kind of shaped a little bit of the way the distribution can be looked at from that sense. And we've also kind of seen, as we said earlier, like the ramp up of releases, and to me that's also exciting, because now you have artists. Russ was obviously a really big one who was doing this, where he was dropping a new single every week. If you're a big Russ fan and you're getting a new single every week for 2 years, like, that's awesome. You know what I mean? Papoose is another one who's doing it through Tunecore, where this whole year he dropped a new EP every single month and titled it from that month. So point being is that because things have changed and streaming is here, the way that some artists are ramping their releases up. If you're a hardcore fan of a specific artist and you're constantly getting new material from them, I mean, that's a win. It's a connection that it can't be replicated when you're only putting out an album once a year, once every other year. And don't get me wrong, there are the Taylor Swifts and Ed Sheerans of the world that can do that, but for the most part, for the 99.9999 other artists that aren't at that A+ level, staying in fans' faces is really important. So I think it's exciting that again, those barriers are gone and artists can just release as they want.
Yeah, for sure. It's so exciting to see, all of these shifts and all of these barriers starting to be broken down, like, more and more. Oz, what about you? What are you most excited about in the music and tech space?
Well, I mean, like everybody, I'm probably looking at NFTs and seeing how that's going to affect everybody, and it's very exciting, obviously, because you just see the numbers and the money and how much. But I think on a broader scale, I just want to tell artists, don't be frustrated if there's certain things that you can't get with that are new, or that your fan base is not new. I think what's important across all this is find how to build your community and where your fans are, and grow that. And some people are going to be hot on TikTok, but not on, YouTube. So, go there and build that out. Discord right now for communities is amazing. And I think that that's really important. And if you have a fan base that is on there and you can build that and talk directly to your fans, it's going to help everything. It's going to help your NFT business, your streaming business, everything. But some artist fans are not going to be on there, but they might be on YouTube. So we don't know what's going to be next. We all know 3.0 is going to change, and there's going to be things that are going to evolve, and it's going to be important for us to be aware of it. like I think as Mikaela said, it's good to just be aware of all these things. Now you don't have to be an expert, and don't get frustrated if you're not, because the way music also works, and a lot of people might not realize this, is sometimes it's really slow to adapt because there's a lot of laws, there's a lot of players, and people hold weight in the publishing side and the master side. And I just remember when before Spotify came out, there was a handful of platforms that would have been way better than Spotify. They would have killed Apple and iTunes, but the players didn't want to lose the dollar download, so they would buy these tech and kill it. And then Spotify should have been there at least 5 years before. So even though we might have the tech, it's not necessarily meaning music's going to come in and play ball right away. So don't stress about it as an artist if there's certain things that you're not, getting with. I think it's really just important to remain true to your art, your fans, and find ways to grow and build your fan base in the community, because that's going to be a positive across no matter what happens with the tech. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that you shared that tip for artists, which is a perfect segue into our final question before we jump into the audience Q&A. What advice do you guys have for folks attending the summit who want to get started in the music and tech space? Josh, why don't you start us off?
I would say really hone in on like the artist you want to be and what you want to say first, like, because I think that you're going to come in, and as we've all really outlined, there's so many partners, so many players, and I think that at the end of the day, you got to really know what you want to say and understand that through line that you want to bring to the project and the art that you're putting out. And then also, I really love that Oz made that point about don't be daunted by just all these new opportunities and spaces that pop up that you really may not know how to sit and be in. One of the biggest things, even with big artists, we always try to is bringing them to TikTok and understanding that it can work for you. And there's a way that you can craft content that doesn't seem forced, and I can just you can be seamless with your everyday. And there is an audience for that. And I think that that's what people forget. They always think there's no audience for something. I think technology has enabled us to see what's visible and all these different subsects and all these different communities that really can kind of get excited about what's going on. And one thing I've learned, no matter what I've done, is there's always two things. People want to all join behind something and rally behind a moment or a project or piece of art. And there's always going to be this crave for VIP experiences and exclusivity. So that's how things like NFTs can arise. I used to do stuff for Amex, like Coachella and moments, just creating spaces where you feel exclusive, you feel special, and are able to connect with the music or moment that you care most about.
Yeah, for sure. And I love that you mentioned the fact that, some people think that there's no audience for their music, or, no one's not gonna like what they're doing. But now that we have these tools, that you have access to this worldwide audience of 8 billion people, there's gonna be someone out there that, vibes with your music, vibes with your stuff, no matter how, weird or niche you might think it is. You just have to find a way to, get your stuff in front of them.
I work with this band, The Living Tombstone, that was in video games. Their numbers are crazy on YouTube, and it's gaming music. It's this audience for it, and they're not out here traditionally. They're not touring. You only find them online, and there's an audience for everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. Mikaela, do you want to share any advice that you have for folks attending the summit who want to get started in the music and tech space?
Yeah, we've already talked about the importance of having a plan, and I'm a very type A person. I'd be planning, but with that being said, you can make a plan and then it can all, wither away, i.e. 2020 on to today. So, make a plan, but then make space for that plan to change. And also, I forget who mentioned it, it might've been us, but authenticity is key. And people can tell, especially now, especially this generation, they can tell when you're not being authentic. If it's forced, they can tell, they will drag you for it. And so I think it's really important to stay authentic and to really look at yourself as your own sort of use case. I can't imagine this. I'm sure there's somebody, but if you're trying to be an artist trying to get into the music space, I could only imagine that there's a musician that you admire or that you look up to or that you like. And, just instead of trying to Google all the answers, just look inside of yourself. you like this artist. What made you like this artist? What made you really build that connection into loving that artist? Like, what makes you want to tell a friend about it? And like, even though it may not be the exact same formula, it at least gives you the tools to kind of figure out which puzzle pieces fit for you. And I think that once you start with authenticity, other people can feel that, and they want other people to feel that. And that's what that sort of organic growth kind of builds off of, versus like, especially on TikTok, you can see with the ads, like you open the app and then the ads are there, and then it's like, ooh, this is forced. Let me go to the comments. And then I'm running the comments, see what they're saying. And they're like, oh, girl, this is really terrible. And it's everyone just like joining in on that, because maybe like in the past, that was the wave, but nowadays people can definitely tell. So I think if you lead with authenticity, why is that the word that's making me have a problem today? Authenticity, and you're authentic, then that'll lay a lot of the original groundwork for you, so that you can actually build worthwhile connections with your existing and potential fans.
Yes, for sure. I love that you, talked about leading with authenticity, and connected that back to what Josh mentioned about, if you are just being your authentic self, there's going to be an audience out there that appreciates you for who you are, and, everything that you have to offer, and the unique value that you have. And, it's not really worth it to try to be anyone else, or to try to force it. Because like you said, it's so easy to see right through that. So thanks for mentioning that. And Chris, do you have any final words of advice for folks attending the summit who want to get started in the music and tech space?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it was touched on already, but I think one kind of key point here is, when you're first starting out, there's always that fear of, well, I don't know enough, or I don't know everything. Well, I can assure you that this business is so rapidly changing and evolving all the time that nobody in this industry knows everything. You know what I mean? And anyone who tells you they do is just, they're wrong. There's just too much to know. There's too many people. It's always evolving. So, at the core, you should understand how this business works. And luckily, as I said before, we're living in the greatest time ever because of technology, where YouTube does exist, Google exists. Like, you can find things out if you seek that information for free. So I would recommend, if you're confused about, what are the proper ways that I should be pitching myself for playlists, look it up, because you can find out. It's not like these are just, hidden secrets. But yeah, I really wouldn't be scared about what you don't know. It's like everybody said, it's being authentic, and putting the music out there that you want to best represent yourself. And then the last thing I would say is, get really organized. Most artists, when they're first starting out, don't realize that, yes, your music is the product, but you're the CEO of this business, and you're probably the marketing director, and you're probably the project manager, and all of the other, roles that are played in this industry. You're all of that, and you have to be organized. If you, like I said before, there's 60,000 new songs getting uploaded to Spotify every day. How are you standing out? If you're not organized, it's a lot harder to do. So if I was you, if I was an artist that was just starting out, I would get very organized, and every single day I would have in my calendar, okay, from 9:30 to 10 a.m. I'm going to answer my DMs, and I'm going to make one-on-one connections with my fans, and I'm going to build that army of diehards that are going to connect with me. From 10 to 10:30, I'm going to research what are the latest trends going on this platform. From this time to this time, I'm going to reach out to other artists or check out some playlists to see what's happening, what's working, maybe some artists I can collab with. So it's things like that. If you put those the everyday strategy, if you get regular with what you're doing, if you get consistent, that consistency is going to pay off over time and help give you an edge over all the competition that's out there.
Yeah, for sure. And I love that you shared some really specific action steps that folks can take. Making a schedule, answering messages, doing your research, very tangible things. So I hope everyone has been taking notes, because our panelists have shared so much valuable insight with us today. So now we're going to segue into our audience Q&A. So our first question, and you guys, anyone can hop in on these. So our first question is, now that we have the tools to release independently, is it still worth signing a distribution deal with a label? What are some of the pros and cons of going through a label?
I guess I'll answer that. I mean, everybody can distribute everything anywhere. I mean, look at Russ. He's, so successful, still uses Tunecore. That could be, anybody can use Tunecore right now. It could be a great thing. I know so many artists have built up their fan base. At some point, you may want something else. You may want an advance so you can have a marketing budget. And that's when you may want to sign a distribution deal. You may want a team to help you. You may want Chris's team to help you out with something. And then you might want to sign a distribution deal. And most of the deals are pretty fair and they don't lock you up for too long, but they are still kind of exclusivity things. So you have to kind of weigh with the plus and minuses, all that. When you're just starting out, if you're just going with a distributor, they're probably not going to do anything unless you already have a fan base and are doing something. So you're probably at a place where you need to make certain decisions. And there's always the decision to do that versus go straight to Tunecore or sign with the label. So there's always, pros and cons, and you got to discuss with your team. And it's really a unique situation every time.
Yeah, for sure. I think that like you said, it's such a unique situation with every artist, and I think ultimately it really depends on what your personal goals are, because what one artist might be trying to do with their music is not someone else's career trajectory. So I appreciate that you mentioned that. Does anyone else want to add to that about now that we have the tools to distribute independently, what are some of the pros and cons of doing a distribution deal through a label?
Yeah, I could definitely add to that. I mean, I think that, everything that happens within the business, there's a value exchange, right? When you release music, your listener, your fan is trading in a value of time to listen to you. Whoever you're getting into business with, there has to be a transaction of value at some level. So whether it's with a traditional record label, a distributor with services, regardless of what kind of a deal you could potentially be going into, you have to understand what that value is. So you need to know, okay, well, if I go with this company, these are the splits that I'm going to get. So I'm going to be able to have this much of the revenue versus this much. If I go over here, they're not going to let me own my masters, but these other companies will allow me to own my masters. This deal over here is for 10 years, while this one over here is for 5. So there's all these different key points that you kind of have to understand. And the one big thing that you're always going to want, I mean, yes, obviously everybody wants ownership. You want to own your masters if you can. Not everybody's going to be offered deals like that when you're first starting out, or you're looking for significant money. But the reality is you want to have flexibility to put out your art the way that you want to put it out. So if you're going to get into business with somebody and they're going to dictate what your release schedule is going to be, they're going to tell you, okay, well, we'll put out this song once we have a hole for you in our own schedules. You have to understand that there are a million stories out there of artists who sign these deals and then they get shelved, and then they never, they get the bag, but you never hear from them again because they get shelved for 2 or 3 years, and then there's a battle to get out. And so I think no matter what kind of a deal you have, it's all about the value. If maybe you do want to just go to radio and have some big spend there, well then cool. Well then look at what the value of that is. Maybe you don't want to give up a piece in exchange for marketing plans and marketing dollars and having somebody fund your videos. Well then cool. Maybe just a straight flat distribution route is the way to go. It's again, like I was saying, it's really dependent on what you're looking for. And like you said, it's not always going to be the same thing, but just know that it's always a value exchange. So don't ever accept the first deal that comes, and without negotiation, you should always have a lawyer. Trust me, I know it's expensive. It pays to have a good lawyer and manager to look over your deals and, not just sign something because it's put in front of you.
Yeah, I hope you guys. Oh, sorry, Mikaela, go ahead.
No, I just want to quickly add, as my dad would say, there's no such thing as free lunch. There's never such thing as free lunch. It's always going to cost you something, whether it be your time or something. So really important to go on ahead and get that legal representation and look over your stuff, because you don't want to be caught up. It happens so often. It's sad. So yeah, that's all I wanted to say.
Yeah, absolutely. I hope you guys wrote that down. So I think we have time for maybe one or two more questions before we dive into our listening session. So the next question, how do you see NFTs and DAOs shifting distribution? I know, we've been seeing a lot of people getting really creative with, just not even going to streaming platforms anymore and just completely releasing their music through NFTs, finding new ways to reach their audiences. How do you guys think that NFTs and DAOs are going to change distribution?
I mean, I could just say from my stance, I think we're still so early in it that I think that the best ideas haven't come yet. That's typically the way that it works. Over time, people figure out what's working, what's not. So I think that story will kind of play itself out over the next few years. But obviously, they're here to stay. A lot of artists are still just kind of getting their toes dipped in to, feel it out. And I think that the other side of that is that overall, like the consumer is starting to just now get a little bit better educated and are going to feel more comfortable in that space. So I think it's kind of wide open at this point. I mean, we've all heard the Beeple story, but in terms of music and creativity, I think that artists are creative people. So the best ideas haven't been there yet. And they're going to come from great artists or great managers who are just super creative. So it's another exciting thing to look forward to in the future.
Yeah, for sure. Does anyone else have anything to add to that about how they see NFTs and DAOs shifting distribution?
I agree with Chris. We don't know what's going to happen yet. It's exciting. It's not going to work the same for everyone. It's a great additional potential vertical. And, we want to all hear what creative people are doing in the space because we all want to empower independent artists. So I think just probably for all of us, it's an exciting time for that technology to be taking place. And it'll be, a nice addition, if nothing else, to other verticals that artists and rights holders can make money from, which is a great thing. So they can continue creating. So I hope soon there'll be a one-click option on all the distros where you can add an NFT option, but that's probably a little ways away, but I'm gonna try and make that happen maybe.
Yeah, that's a great idea. You should write that down. But yeah, before we jump into our listening session, finally, where can the audience find and follow you guys and keep up with all of your cool projects? Mikaela, where can folks find you?
Yeah, I feel like LinkedIn is obviously the best place for all the professional things. Obviously, my Instagram is tagged, but if you just want to see pictures of my dog or whatever, that's what my Instagram is mostly. It's just outfits and dog stuff from Instagram, I'll be completely honest. So really all professional things, definitely my LinkedIn. I'm Michaela Allen on LinkedIn. So if you just type in my name, I'll be under there, under Distrokid, and you'll be able to find me on there. And I answer a lot of Instagram DMs via LinkedIn, and that would definitely be the best way.
Awesome. Josh, where can folks find you?
Really quick, and I'm so sorry I didn't want to go over, but just to Az's point and so agreement, I just think that NFTs are just going to really inspire us to be more creative. We're putting more value on one of a kind moments, experiences, art, and I just think that it'll more so impact behavior. And so we'll see what comes up with it. Mikaela mentioned about Vine. It doesn't exist, but look what it did. So I think that's and for me, like Mikaela, LinkedIn, pretty much answer those a lot. It might say Joshua Kyle instead of Joshua Kyle Dickinson, and then also Instagram, Joshua_Kyle.
Awesome. Chris, where can folks find you?
Yeah, I'm definitely an Instagram guy. It's _Chris Maltese _. Also huge on LinkedIn, and I'm glad it got brought up because I do think that it's probably the most underrated social network out there. I mean, social, it's a little bit more business oriented, but I have had artists reach out there. I've also found great marketing ideas and initiatives because there's other people in the industry talking about what they're doing. And I happen to be connected to a lot of marketing people. So going back to what I was saying before about creating that schedule and getting, very consistent, if you're not scheduling time to create connections, whether it's LinkedIn or Instagram or anywhere else, you're missing out. I know I still to this day, I've been in this business for over 20 years, and I still to this day, every single day, go to LinkedIn and at least connect to one new person or respond to, some messages. Or I think LinkedIn is a phenomenal tool. But yeah, you can find me on Instagram as well.
Awesome, perfect. And Oz, where can folks find you?
Yeah, my Insta is Ozgood, OZGOOD, and then as everybody else mentioned, LinkedIn as well. And just want to tell everybody that's looking to work in the music or tech business side to, don't be afraid to reach out to people, kind of try and offer them something we might not know so you can stick out. And, you might be able to set up a call with us, but if you're not, like, we're happy to, most of us, I would imagine, to message people who want to know how we got where we are. And like I said, I started as an intern. I worked for free, and that led me down this whole career path. And everywhere you go, you build up your network, and that can be potential, things that, can people who can hire you in the future. So I just want to kind of put that out there too, and tell everybody, don't be afraid to reach out to people and figure out how they got where they're at. Because, a lot of us didn't know. I never even planned to work in the music business. So, but I'm gladly working in it and met a lot of cool people there. So holler.
Amazing.
If I could actually just add one thing to that too, just as a little tip, and I started this, I don't know, 15 years or so ago, but I have an Excel sheet that, again, to this day, I keep minimized on my browser, that I literally have a tab for A&Rs, a tab for video directors, a tab for, makeup and hair people, a tab for music supervisors, a tab for publishers, lawyers, there's so many tabs, but I've built up this list, this contact list with names, email addresses, and notes of how I know them or how I connected to them, so that 5 years from now, 10 years from now, when I cross paths with somebody, I can very quickly, while I'm on the phone or on email, go and look and see, have I had some kind of connection with this person before? So that's something else I would really recommend doing. The earlier you can start that, the more dividends it's going to pay for you as time goes on.
Yeah, awesome. That is a huge, huge gem. So I hope you guys wrote that down. Amazing. So thank you to our panelists for all of the amazing insights that you guys have shared with us. So that concludes our interview and our Q&A portion. And now we are going to dive into our listening session. So the purpose of this listening session, it's for, rising artists to get more exposure for their music, to, reach new audiences. It's also for our audiences to, find new artists, and also for artists to have an opportunity to get, valuable feedback from industry professionals. So up first, we have Whole by Daryl J and V featuring Karma.
Something about the moment, I knew it when I felt it. Feeling so different. Oh. Ever since I found you, I feel brand new. It's like I'm living in a dream, got me floating on cloud nine. And I ain't afraid to say it, no. Got me thinking about some kids and a marriage, babe. Yeah. And it's all because of you. Make me wanna stay true. Do anything for you. Just listen. You what's been missing. You bring out the best in me, and without you, I ain't complete.
Does anyone have any thoughts that they want to share? Any feedback?
That's definitely a song that I would say be as descriptive as possible in your metadata. There's definitely so many different playlisting that could land. I always think in the mindset of TV and film. And so like, you know, whether it's like outro credits or like a cut scene or moving into something, definitely, and I love the vibe of the song and his voice as well, especially. But yeah, that's definitely one where it's like, you want to really kind of be as granular and detailed as possible. There's so many different places that a song like that could live.
I was going to say the exact same thing. Like, it's very timely for cuffing season, having everyone thinking about their decisions, done it. Yeah, Josh. It's like the perfect song where it's like,
get out my head, Mikaela.
I think I may love her. Yeah, exactly. Perfect time for the holidays.
Yeah, I was just gonna say. I mean, I definitely, I know that song is definitely a vibe. I mean, just if I was gonna give any kind of, you know, feedback in terms of changes, I would just, if it is something from a playlist perspective that you're looking to like really dig into, you know, I think the intro was a little bit long in terms of how playlisting kind of operates. They kind of want you to get in a little bit quicker. It took a while before we got to that hook. So I would just maybe, you know, chop that down a little bit. But also for a song like that, you know, a lot of people don't really think about licensing and sync when they're first releasing. There's a lot of third-party sync companies out there that will rep you, and it doesn't cost you anything. That's a song I could see landing in, you know, a film or a show. But yeah, it's a vibe. I mean, I definitely dig the song. But don't sleep on licensing. It's the closest thing you can get to overnight success. And I would just maybe chop that intro down a little bit.
Awesome.
I agree with everybody. It's a vibe.
Amazing. Okay, so up next we have Come On by Shine Robbins.
Come on.
Anyone want to share their thoughts on this one?
I was going to say this is one as well that I would say they would also like, I think that's some point that we've been missing the last one is also for you as an artist, come to where you think your song is going to live as well. Like even when I think on the brand partnership side, when I do like, when we do video treatments, it's like when we're putting scenes in to like a deck and we're like pitching partners and stuff like that, we want to show them where their product can live and like, or with the vibe or the feeling that the song is giving, where other things kind of come into play. And I think that's important too. So this could either be like, you know, like we're saying, like credits or something like that, or because it's the way that it is, it could be really kind of chopped up and shrunken in different areas. It could, you know, it could be like literally on like 15-second ad clips or somewhere else.
Yeah, for sure. Does anyone want to add to that? Anyone have any feedback for Shine Robbins?
I have a quick question. Is it assumed that these songs are already distributed, or are some of these maybe not?
I think most of them may already be distributed, but some of them may be unreleased. I'm not sure about the specific one.
Okay, for sure. Because I'm not sure if this one's unreleased, but I did, because you so graciously put the names and the songs and everything in there. So I was like, all right, girl, I like that. Let me go on Spotify and look it up, but I could not find this one. So I guess one thing I'd say is in an instance like this where you are like, okay, it's a secret release. Okay, I get it. Then, but even then, like, I do really like this song. I mean, I'm the sort of person that likes those little like minute and a half, like almost 2-minute little interlude songs. And I'm like, oh wait, no, where's the rest of it? They got me with the come on in the beginning, and then I can't even look it up later. So I guess in an instance like this, like, and like, not to say that like I won't be able to find it later, but then that's later, and that, you know, there's been time in between when I heard it and when it's actually out. So while I do really like the song, I feel like in instances like this where it's like, oh yeah, this is great. Let me continue on that journey. It would be maybe even better to have something that's already a little bit easier to find or a little bit more widely available to show, just so that people can dive in and start learning about you. Because even the artist's name I wasn't able to find on Spotify. And not to say that Spotify should be like your one, only, whatever, but it's like the Google in terms of where people are gonna try to go and find you for the most part. So really like it, but I wish I could hear more, essentially.
Yeah, this one is not out yet, but we will definitely be hearing more from Shine Robin. So keep an eye out for that. Does anyone else have any feedback before we play the next one?
Just talk about maybe like once it is out, like how to maybe like make it more findable, and to expand on what Mikaela was talking about is a kind of a hack to do is make your own playlist with other artists who you like, who think people may search, and then kind of pin that to your page and advertise that playlist too, and then write real descriptive, going back to metadata, a real way to publicly affect where the song might get heard is by listing everything in the description. Because when you're searching on Spotify, you know, you might have a song like that sounds like somebody else, and you put their name in and put their music on and add yours to it and advertise that as well, and guilt by association kind of.
Yeah, that's a huge tip right there. All right, so our next one is going to be Shadow by Elsie.
Two years with no sleep, guess I've been living the dream. I'm sinking, I've hit the bottom. Searching for something to cast aside the feeling. Looking out from behind.
Anyone have any feedback for Elsie, whose song is called Shadow?
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was cool. Cool voice. It's another one I could see from like a visual point of view. So could see it in an ad, video game type of situation, maybe. I thought it was cool. I think the production was cool, but very full. So there were times where I kind of wanted to hear her more, and maybe I'm just not using the greatest headphones in the world right now, but I did want to hear her voice ride on top of the track a little bit more. But yeah, I mean, overall, I thought it was cool. It's probably the kind of song that, you know, if it gets released as a single, you might want to put a remix package together. I could hear the BPMs being sped up and, you know, having some different production elements to it. So, but overall, it was cool.
Yeah, so there actually is a remix for Shadow that is also on Elsie's Spotify page, so you guys can definitely check that out afterwards. Does anyone else have any feedback for Elsie?
I mean, yeah, I like that. I Shazammed it right away. So, but yeah, no, it's one of those ones like this point. It reminds me of because the core of it, like, you know, it's a very emotional song, and I think production can kind of shift the exact feeling and the mood that you want to feel when you're hearing it. in different ways that could be beneficial. Kind of reminds me of like, what's that Tate McRae song? He broke me first or something. But when they roll it out, there's so many different versions of it. There's sped up, there's slow, there's acoustic. She's performed different, and then it's allowed it to live in so many places, especially across TV and film and commercial.
Yeah, awesome. Does anyone else have any feedback before we move on to our next song?
I agreed with what Chris said. I really love the voice. I thought the production was like so even the whole time, that like if there's more drops or if it was lower in the mix, or I like the voice a lot. I'd like to hear more of that, I guess.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, so up next we have Lies by Kaylee Beto.
I'm tired of your gaslighting. Watch it blow up in your face like lightning. But you still stare at the blood and guts in your hair. You don't care. You don't care. I see your moves trying to wipe off the smirk. It's kinda easy to do. Black sociopath and a narcissist. Love to stay on my back. All I'm trying to say is you like the patience. Love to see me outside. Why do you do that? Why make me cry and keep me up at night just to say your lies, your lies, your lies, your lies? Why? Give me reasons why I shouldn't waste my time.
Mikaela, I saw you bopping your head along. Do you have any feedback for Kaylee?
I'm biased as a flute player. I was like, okay, flute. I heard it from the beginning. But yeah, I like the direction that it's going in. I feel like as we get into the technological age and like everything is switching to digital and everything, that's fantastic. But I feel like it would pop a little bit better. I feel like with some live instruments, obviously that like comes with a cost, but like that kind of goes back into the community building thing that we were talking about earlier. Like as singers, I guess, move throughout this industry and everything, I feel like it's really important to connect with instrumentalists, like multi-instrumentalists, maybe one that's a producer that can play real instruments, because that, to me anyway, as someone who like really values live instrumentation, that's something that would have been the differentiating factor for me in this song. I feel like if it was like an actual flute and like real percussion and everything, that would have made it pop a little bit more. But I definitely think that she's going in the right direction.
Yeah, awesome. Does anyone else have anything to add for Kaylee?
The production wise, it was solid. I think lyrically it could, if you can tell, show more than you tell. I thought that kind of was telling. Like, no one likes to be gaslit for sure, but like maybe tell the story instead of just say it, I guess. I mean, that's just how I felt. Like, I like the production, like the voice. Maybe lyrically it could be developed.
Yeah, for sure. Anyone else want to add anything before we move on to our next song? Okay, awesome. So next up we have Heartless by Chris Carter.
I hope you can change, but that don't change the way I feel about you, girl. The way I feel about you, girl. Still don't feel the same, but that don't change the way I look at you, girl. The way I look at you.
I
do it all for you, I ain't gon' cap, you the baddest. Days away from you be the saddest. You hit my line, I'm coming through like, baby, what's the status? Your man always hating, he don't really want no static. I'm too major, the whole city love the boy with me, there's no danger. Sit back, watch your boy turn a Mazda to a Blue Ranger. Tryna have a Benz in the driveway. On some Giannis shit, I did it my way. See the crib, you gotta hit the highway. A back road to a hidden driveway. Used to think that you could be my Beyonce. I got dreams that's as big as Kanye. I need the watch that can freeze the time, ayy.
I hope you can change, but that don't change the way I feel about you, girl. The way I feel about you, girl. Still don't feel the same, but that don't change the way I look at you, girl. The way I look at you.
But back to me and you take a shot.
Oz, I saw you nodding your head along. You have any feedback for Chris?
I mean, I thought it was well put together, good voice, good production. Like that one's like stamp of approval.
Amazing. Love that. Chris, do you have feedback for Chris?
Yeah, I mean, same. I think he's dope. I love the tone of his voice. It's super timely. He's got some bars. I love the watch bar at the end there. Yeah, it was cool. I mean, I did think the track was a little bit thin, meaning it was very linear. I thought it was going to kick in a little bit more. But other than that, I mean, even with that, I think it was dope. I definitely like it. That's probably one I'll go back and check out again later.
Awesome. Mikaela or Josh, do you have any feedback for Chris?
I was solid. Yeah, definitely Shazammed it.
Amazing. Yeah, Chris has been a really awesome member of our community for a long time, so he never misses. So lastly, we have Tonight by Bev. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Bev or B-E-V. It's called Tonight.
You've been looking at me some type of way. I wanna know what's in your mind, don't be afraid. Yeah, we're just wasting time, baby, don't hesitate. Cause soon as you do, baby, you know what I'm gonna say. That I'm gonna pick you up and take your body right down. Yeah, baby, you know what you came for. Girl, I wanna spend some time with you. Never felt a vibe like you. Yeah. Girl, you know we can do. As soon as we start to move. Yeah. Baby, you acting like you ain't know what you signed up for. I know when your eyes avoid me, I'm the one you're still adoring. You know it's so right, baby, we can dance all night. I've been waiting for this moment. Can't nobody do it like you. You got what I like, and I'm feeling your vibe, baby. Ain't nobody gonna interrupt. We do it. Yeah.
Anyone have any feedback?
Yeah, I really like the voice. I like the song. I guess kind of to Oz's point about the other song, like this song explains exactly what's going on. Like, girl, I like you. Here's what we're gonna do. Here's how I feel about you. Here's the possibilities of our relationship. And I guess that makes it kind of easier for people to relate because it's not like people wondering what's going on in a way. So in a way, this was a good use case for what Oz was talking about because I agree. It works.
Yeah, awesome. Oz, do you want to add to that?
I just think, what's going to make a differentiator on this track? That's all I would think about as an artist. And what are the assets you're going to do? What is the marketing going to do? Like every genre, we're overloaded with so much material. So I think as an artist, like thinking creatively, how are you going to hook someone, not just with the hook of the song, but with the visual or the video or the TikTok campaign? Like those are all things I think when I hear a song like this, it's solid on all the marks, but how are we going to how am I going to click save, add to my own personal playlist? That's part of what you, as an artist, you got to think about too. So that's what I would ask the artist.
Yeah, for sure. Do you guys have any final feedback?
I was just gonna, I think I was kind of hit the nail on the head there. It's like a solid R&B song, but there's definitely some, cliche type of things. There's a lot of those, the yeahs and the ohs and stuff that we've heard a million times. So it's like, where's that differentiating factor? So whether it's, adding a feature, getting a rapper on the bridge, or whatever it might be, there's got to be something to, going back to what we said earlier, stand out from those 60,000 songs that are being uploaded every day to Spotify. So I don't know if we heard it, or at least I don't know if I heard it on that, that 45-minute long clip, but that would be my advice, is to just try to do some things to, whether it's in the production or the vocals or the lyrics, to sort of separate yourself from the pack a little bit more.
Yeah, awesome. And Josh, do you have any final feedback before we close out here?
I'm completely in agreement with them, with everyone has said, but also just, not just, I always say for R&B, it's either like you really, really sit in it into R&B is core, or you're in R&B and you're pushing the genre forward. And so like I always say, like for songs like that, it's like, how are you pushing the genre forward? What are you giving us, differentiating, but also just taking it in a direction that isn't where it isn't the last 5 years. It's where people are like, okay, and then that also starts to push other producers forward, and they start to, catch on. So that's why.
Yeah, awesome. All right, so that concludes our listening session, our interview portion, and our audience Q&A. So thank you so much to our panelists again for joining us today for our panel on the future of music distribution. Again, you can find Chris, Mikaela, Josh, and Oz on their socials, on LinkedIn, and keep up with all of the really cool projects that they've been working on. So thank you guys for generously taking the time to join us today, and we hope we'll see you again soon. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
That's great, Bea. Thanks.